Spurs to flash the chequebook in the summer so De Zerbi can build his squad. The cost involved if it doesn't work out for De Zerbi at Spurs. Wanyama, on the new Spurs boss and former Premier League manager, has stated that De Zerbi will not suffer fools. They will be out the door. Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. This is the daily Tottenham news headlines. My name's Lee and I'm here to go through all the reports, rumours and news making the headlines today. If you're watching on YouTube, please do consider subscribing to the channel. Like, share and comment in the comment section below. If you're listening on audio platforms, please do consider following the show and leave a review if you can. So lots and lots of stuff to go through today. So let's kick straight into it. Victor Wanyama on Roberto De Zerbi, the Spurs squad and the current situation. I think everyone should be rallying around the manager. He's a fantastic young coach and I think he will deliver. De Zerbi has shown that everywhere he has gone, he has improved the club. So why not with Spurs? I know he will turn things around. He'll deliver. I would remind them, the players, how good they are and tell them that they have already made history, some of them, by winning the Europa League. They need to make sure they don't ruin what they have done before, to make sure that they take the club out of the relegation zone. And I know they are capable of doing that because they are better than people think they are. Where they are right now, it doesn't define them. It doesn't define the club. Former Premier League manager Tony Pulis on Tottenham and Roberto De Zerbi. Tottenham players and coaches have come in for a major criticism this season. Roberto De Zerbi has 7 games left to turn things around and stave off relegation. He will not tolerate interference and he will not stand for players who won't do what he wants them to. If they fall short, they will be out. He will. De Zerbi's identity as a coach is about free-flowing and forward-passing football, which fits Tottenham too. It's what their fans want, but without having strong characters and a bit of well-directed leadership on the pitch, that will not count when the going gets tough. Wherever I've managed, having that kind of character in my team was always hugely important to me. I felt a sound base like that within the team gave every limited player a chance of being successful by getting results over the course of a long and demanding season. To find out a character of these players, I would go through numerous routes to make sure the lad I was going to sign indeed had the right credentials. Watching them in an away game was a must. For example, so was speaking to their former coaches and managers and players who had played with them. Off the field, I try and put a picture together too. Did they go out a lot? Were they married? The whole process will be as thorough as I could make it. I should add that I did not always go to plan. Spurs cannot sign anyone now to change things. So instead, the players have to step up and show that they have the ability to scrape it out and remain a Premier League side. If they're not up for the fight, they are going down. I was once told by a very senior manager at the top of that, at a top club, that my biggest challenge at a team I had just taken over would be to get everyone pulling together as one. If I could manage that, he said, I would have a great chance of success. That applies to every manager, but with the added layers of management today, doing it has become even tougher. It has to be the target for De Zerbi and Spurs too, whatever division they're in next season. Roberto De Zerbi, very expensive for Tottenham Hotspur to sack if his time doesn't work out in North London. That is according to former Manchester City financial advisor Stefan Borson. who exclusively told Football Insider Spurs will have included liquidated damages clauses in the Italian manager's contract. It is understood De Zerbi's contract doesn't include a relegation clause, while Tottenham will pay him a bonus for keeping them in the top flight this season. Former Everton CEO Keith Wanyama told Football Insider De Zerbi's contract is astonishing after insisting Tottenham have given him everything he wanted. Dawson discussed the clauses in De Zerbi's contract at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Presumably, he said he wouldn't take the job unless it was a full-time gig. He wasn't interested in the short term with a big bonus. I don't know if it makes that much difference really, aside from the optics. If they sack him, they won't be paying out 5 years. They'll have a liquidation clause that will set a level of damages at, say, 12 months notice and 6 months, maybe 6 months for the first 6 months. They say there's no release clause, but that doesn't really mean anything. At the end of the day, there's always a release clause because you can always sack him and always pay him off. So I don't think that means anything. Borson questioned whether handing De Zerbi the job on a permanent basis was the right approach for Tottenham. There's a question as to whether it's a smart idea when they've got a natural window of 7 games, when you say to somebody, let's just concentrate on getting safe and then we'll talk about whether there's a role going forward. Obviously, De Zerbi said he wasn't interested in that proposal, negotiated hard and got himself a full-time job. It's very difficult situation for them to win 3 games from here, if that's what it takes. Most people think it might be 2, but it could be 3 games that you need. And their fixtures are really quite tricky. They start tricky away at Sunderland. It could be an expensive situation, but then again, getting relegated is going to be massively costly. It is interesting as to whether they put in a reduction clause in his contract if they get relegated, or whether they've just not bothered. It's a bit surprising if they haven't. Tottenham Hotspur will back new manager Roberto De Zerbi in the summer transfer window after failing to sufficiently invest in the squad in January. That's according to former Everton and Aston Villa chief executive Keith Wanyama speaking exclusively to Football Insider after De Zerbi was announced as Spurs' new boss on a 5-year deal. Everton's former chief Wanyama, who served as CEO at Goodison Park between 2004 and 2009, now runs a football consultancy advising elite clubs, believes Spurs will spend in the summer in hope of not enduring a relegation battle ever again. But the January window this year, we thought Spurs were going to do quite heavy into the January window and back Thomas Frank. Now I think this has really scared the Spurs owners, and if they do manage to stay up, they will have no choice but to really get the chequebook out and support De Zerbi if he's the manager, which I'm sure he will be, and to really go forward and get the fan base back united. Again, this showed a bit of naivety in January. I was surprised that they didn't back Thomas Frank further. Conor Gallagher was the only move of any merit that I remember at the time. They're going to have to make a statement because they will have lived through these last few weeks. I haven't actually been through a relegation. I took over at Villa when it was relegated. It's not a pleasant time, and they have the resources and they will want to make sure that this will never happen again. I do expect De Zerbi or whoever the manager is, if he keeps them up, to get a serious backing next year and get things moving, because for a club like Spurs, this should never be happening. And finally, various reports in Italy today are stating that Inter Milan want Tottenham Hotspur goalkeeper Guillermo Vicario, 29, as their new number 1. Well, obviously, lots and lots of stuff in there, mainly, again, all about Roberto De Zerbi and people's views and so on and so forth. I think it's quite interesting. Victor Wanyama, obviously an ex-Spurs player, coming out in support of the manager, which I kind of expect him to do. I think it makes sense. He's just retired and has first-hand experience of him. So it's good to know that there are people talking positively about the move and feeling that it is the right thing for Spurs. I think the more interesting story kind of focuses around Tony Pulis, and I think he makes some really interesting points there about what it takes to get the right kind of characters in your club to do the right sorts of things. And I think talking to ex-players that have played with a player, talking to their coaches, finding out a lot about them. You know, what are they like? You know, do they like to party? Have they got a wife and family? You know, are they supported by, you know, their parents or whatever, depending on the youngsters and stuff. And I think that really makes sense. You have to know if the person's going to fit. It's not just about their football talent. If you look at Ndombele, who came to Spurs, absolutely fantastic talent, most sought after player at the time. But his character was totally out of whack with what you would want for the Premier League. He was lazy, he was out of weight, overweight, didn't train particularly well, didn't have the right kind of attitude for Spurs at all. And so obviously an absolute failure of a player. And I think that's probably where a lot of our problems come from, is making sure we're picking the right sorts of players, because we've gone more for the technical and the data-based results and picks, mainly because they've had their fingers burnt with Lascelles, Ndombele, those sorts of players where they've paid big money for them and they've flopped. And so they've kind of gone, well, let's go for, you know, up-and-coming talent doing the numbers and everything. I personally am for that. I do like the idea of looking at the data that tells you a lot of stuff about a player, but you also have to know the character of the player as well. You have to know what sort of person they are, because the data will only tell you about where they are currently. It won't tell you about what they're going to do when they come and hit the bright lights of London, for instance. You know, where it's 24-hour and all the rest of it, and you have to live sort of fairly close to Essex or Hertfordshire or somewhere like that, which is minutes from central London. So, you know, there's a lot to consider in that. So I thought it was really interesting that Pulis talked about that. I thought it makes a lot of sense. Moving on to the financial stuff, I guess everyone can have their own opinions on this, but let's face it, Tottenham are in a really difficult situation. We're at a crossroads. If we don't stay up, we are going to lose so much money in terms of sponsorship. Player recruitment's going to be difficult. Contracts that players are on, how much money they're going to earn, and how that's going to drain. Falling crowds, you know, TV revenue, sponsorship deals, all that kind of stuff is all going to impact. So I'm not surprised that they've given De Zerbi exactly what he wants. I think what they tried to do when they first spoke to him was talk to him, and he said, I don't want a part-time job. I want to be full-time in there. And they were like, well, you know, and I don't want to start until the summer. And they were like, well, okay, look, let's fill the gap in the short term. So that's where Tudor came in, and of course that's how has that ended up? A massive problem. And so they've then had to go back to him and say, look, you know, what can we do to get you to come now rather than waiting for the summer? And of course he's like, okay, I want this amount of money. I want this amount of backing. I want to know that you're going to back me if I'm in the Championship, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to get a sack, all that kind of stuff. And I think if you want the best target out there, in your opinion, if he is the best target out there, then you're going to have to put up or shut up. But again, I do agree. I think there will and I've said this previously, I do believe that there will be reduction clauses in that. I don't see them paying out a 5-year contract for someone after 2 years, especially if we get relegated and so on. So I think there's a lot to be kind of thought about from that point of view. And then moving on to the bit about recruitment. Absolutely, Tottenham have to recruit. They've absolutely got to go out there and start making real moves. They've spent a lot of money, but they've spent a lot of money on young, raw talent, which is still costly. But they still need that mix. They need those players to be able to come in and be ready now, good enough and ready to make the difference. We cannot afford to be scrapping in a relegation battle for years to come. You look at the problems it's caused Everton, massive club Everton, who did, you know, so much in the 80s and so on. Never invested, got themselves into a lot of trouble and battled relegation after David Moyes left the first time. Went through all different managers, all different sort of scenarios and stuff, and are only just now getting back, new stadium, and Moyes is back there, and there's a level of security around that, and I think that's the right move. So I believe that Tottenham will start spending money. They have to. They have no other option but to spend that money. So let's hope that will be true. But I'm pretty sure that it will be, because I don't see any other option. And there are lots of positions that we still need to fill. Solanke and Richarlison, Kalamwani, they've not pulled any trees up, so that's definitely a problem. Centre back wise, is Van der Ven going to be there next season? It does feel like he wants to go. He's not really interested. Let's see if that changes under De Zerbi, but certainly he hasn't looked like he's been very interested in football. Left back cover for Udogie. You can't always rely on Spence. Spence should be covering for Porro, otherwise Porro is covering every game. Porro hasn't been outstanding this season. Does he need upgrading or serious competition? So there's so much to do, and of course, I mentioned at the end of the story about Vicario moving on. Milan are after him. What surprised me, I do think we need to upgrade that position. He came in, he's done very well, brilliant shot stopper, but his distribution is poor. His decision making sometimes is questionable. He's had his issues with corners and so on, being strong enough. So for me, it's another position we probably need to strengthen. So I think there's lots to do. I think there's lots to do for sure, and you need to be a Premier League side. You need to be a Premier League side that's got stature, that's got the kind of draw, but it also needs to pay the right level of wages that these top players expect now. Unfortunately, it's just the way it is, and Tottenham need to get into the right the 21st century for it, because otherwise it's just never going to happen, and they're going to be in this cycle of mid-table mediocrity or relegation struggles every time. So bit interesting, So we'll see what comes on it, but the focus at the moment has got to be getting out of that relegation battle. So that's where the focus needs to be. So fingers crossed we can do that and start talking about some of this stuff more effectively as the season progresses and we start to look at next season. But listen, thanks so much for watching this episode. It's a pleasure to bring you these news stories on a daily basis. As I said at the beginning, I do my own YouTube channel called Dorset Spur. If you do like what I've done and how I come across, please do feel free to pop across there and give us a sub and see what it's all about. I'd be grateful to have you. From this channel's point of view, obviously Chris and the rest of the guys that do stuff on here will be grateful for you to subscribe to this channel. Like and share and comment in the comment section. It's all really helpful to the channel, gives us an idea about what you think and what you want, and what the view of the fans is. And of course, if you're listening on audio because you're out walking a dog or you're on your way to work or something like that, please do hit the follow button so that you'll get notifications of when we go and put out more content, and also leave a review if you can. So thanks for watching, and as always, I'll see you on the next one. Up the Spurs.